Olá, para você que nos assiste, seja bem-vindos a mais um programa AgroAmérica, em parceria com o Instituto Interamericano de Cooperação para a Agricultura, o ICA, aqui no AgroMais. Discutimos políticas, aplicações técnicas e desenvolvimento sustentável em agricultura que pode ser reproduzido nos 34 países membros do hemisfério. Hoje, vamos conversar sobre bioeconomia nas Américas e os desafios para a transição energética de fontes fósseis para fontes renováveis. Nosso entrevistado é o Dr. David Zilberman, professor do Departamento de Economia Agrícola e Recursos Econômicos da Universidade da Califórnia, em Berkeley. Ele recebeu, em 2019, o Prêmio Wolf por sua extensa pesquisa em agricultura, políticas ambientais, economia da inovação e bioeconomia, como também mudanças climáticas. Dr. David Zilberman, thank you so much for your participation here on our program.
Well, thank you. I'm very, very pleased to be here.
It's wonderful to have you here, as well as a reference in research around the world. Dr. David Zilberman, I'd like to start out with asking you about our present moment right now, which we are facing given the COVID-19 pandemic, the resurgence of another type of variation of this virus, the Omicron variation. And what is the role of bioeconomy at this moment in which the world is looking to uptake the economy, to reboost the activity, both industrial and as well in the different fields around the world? How does bioeconomy have its place right now?
Well, I think actually the pandemic really emphasized the importance and the value of the bioeconomy. What do I mean? The pandemic, we have several vaccines, and the two best vaccines are mRNA vaccine, that you can say they are a genetic modification vaccine. They rely on the same ideas behind more or less behind CRISPR and other transformation. So to some extent, the pandemic really shows the capacity of the bioeconomy or technology to take advantage of new development in genomics, new development in molecular biology, new development in cell biology, how these technologies can actually make a huge difference and save humanity. Think about it. It took about, I don't know, a year and a half, to produce new type of vaccines that are more effective than anything else. So to some extent, this really show how much the power of biology, and we are only at the beginning. With the mRNA, I think we would start having vaccines that will be much better for every disease. So you can really see the genetic modification, taking the knowledge of genetic modification, can accelerate processes, can make them more efficient, and can increase health. The other thing that the pandemic have shown is the need the need to have agricultural systems that is more efficient, the need to be able to produce food and to respond to shocks, and the need to be resilient. And here again, the power of biology will allow us to be more resilient. If you have a disease that affects plants or affect human or affect animals, with knowledge of molecular biology, genomics, and the other sciences that are behind the bioeconomy, you can respond much faster.
You mentioned the CRISPR-Cas genome modification technology, which was granted actually a Nobel Prize, and it's probably the forefront of what is to create modifications within genomes, not only in plants, but in other fields. But it gives us a great opportunity also to enhance biosecurity around the world, given pesticide control, as well as other issues on field. However, one of the biggest challenges now with bioeconomy, especially between different regions in the Americas, for example, is the capacity for countries and regions to adopt technical efficiency, increased numbers, and as well developed high-tech industrialization for this future development of bioeconomy. Is that the case in your vision? Do you see that as one of the biggest challenges that we face?
We'll see. If you ask me, I think that Latin America and the Americas could be the heart of the biotechnology because we have this incredible amount of biological resources and we have different countries with different climates and each of them has different type of biological resources. However, the bioeconomy is knowledge intensive. And I think the big challenge is to emphasize investment in human capital, namely in educated people in research. So to some extent, the key for the bioeconomy or the key for any modern technology is what I call the educational industrial complex. That you have universities and industries that are linking together and that researchers at the university are producing new product that goes to industry. Now, it doesn't mean that what you need are Nobel Prize winners. It means that you need people that are very well educated at different level of the supply chain. So obviously, you like to invent new products, develop new varieties, like for example, Brazil did many years ago with the biofuel. But I think that Latin America needs to develop scientists, technicians, and other people that are able to take advantage of knowledge. So instead of importing stuff, it will be able to be produced here. Now, so it means investment in education, investment in research, working in other countries, maybe the United States and other countries, to augment human capital and really emphasizing the sciences. Now, this is not only for the biotechnology, it's for everything. We are really entering a century that scientific power is very, very important. It's a huge challenge. Some countries in Latin America are much better than others. Brazil is a lot of Chile, Argentina, Mexico, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru. Every different countries have a base. You have to expand this base. You have to move forward. You have to take research centers and make them even more effective. Now, one big model organization in Latin America, for example, is the Brazilian agricultural experiment station that basically develop a new system to develop agriculture in Brazil. Other countries develop strong agricultural research center and invest in this. But I think it really has to start almost with little kids. Emphasize knowledge in biology, emphasize knowledge in mathematics. And the other thing that Latin America can do, given the capacity and the unique resources, you can work with other countries, with the US, Germany, and others, so to take advantage and discover new type of properties of genetic material by knowing what is in the field. So I think this element of linking the genome in what you see in the field to know what genes do what. That's something that can be developed here in collaboration with other countries. And when you do this type of research, you develop the people that can do things, put things ever further. So to me, the number one challenge is building the human capital that will allow to develop a really strong industry, which will be it will be not only for food, it will be for medicine, and it will be for biofuel, it will be for chemical. I think the bioeconomy will allow us to move to an economy that is much more renewable rather than non-renewable.
Certainly, the cooperation between not only countries in the regions, but also countries in other continents is very important. There is a necessity in order for there to be more integration within the region with regards to technological partnerships, right? And partnerships between different institutions. Now, what is the biggest challenge, do you think, for smaller countries? Smaller countries, not talking about Peru, Colombia, Venezuela, Brazil, or Argentina, but countries perhaps that have lesser capacity in terms of land, but that need more technical refinement, more investment in universities in order to develop their own industries, which could be smaller in size, but will help their countries. For example, countries in the Caribbean who are looking to be more autosufficient in terms of food production, for example. What do you think are the
I'll say,
challenges?
but if you look at countries like in the Caribbean uh, or Central America, obviously you have some success stories like Costa Rica. And the bioeconomy has a lot of things. First of all, these countries are in the middle of the ocean, so they can emphasize, for example, a lot of the blue bioeconomy, fisheries, algae. I think algae will have a huge role in terms of sequestering climate change. The bioeconomy also include a lot of medical research, and my feeling is that you can really develop biological-based treatment, and given the location of the countries in the Caribbean, they can be a center for this product. They can also specialize in specific crops, high-value crop. Speak about cocoa, banana, but you can also speak about other crops. So my feeling is that given the location that allows them to attract people from all over, given the fact that the climate, they can emphasize other aspects of the bioeconomy, the blue bioeconomy, the medical bioeconomy, and some specialty crops. Now, for example, they can be centers for a research institute that will attract people from all over the world. They can be center about issues that relate to managing climate change through the ocean. So my feeling is, given that they are small countries, they need to have a research program that will attract other nations. Given that they have good weather, they can be center for nurseries. For example, Puerto Rico has a lot of nurseries that produce seeds and other products that are used throughout the U.S. There is no reason that similar thing will be done in the rest of the Caribbean. And Central America, I think you know what Costa Rica can done, and Costa Rica can move forward much more. But Nicaragua, Honduras, they also take advantage of some of these things. Now, also given that the tropical forests are different in every area, if you start to develop research centers that would look at the properties of a lot of the plant and the animals there and the genetic material there and what we can learn from it, I think that you can develop research centers throughout the Latin America that will learn about the biology, and then eventually it will help the economy. And you need local investment, but you can get a lot of partnership from other people. The big challenge is to develop intellectual property agreement and other agreements, so the benefit of the knowledge will be shared. But in the same way that Costa Rica became an incredible center of tourism, the rest of and knowledge about tropical agriculture, and people get paid for payment for ecosystem services, the rest of Central America and the Caribbean can benefit from similar patterns.
In that case, we have already an example of public-private partnership that worked very well for Costa Rica in that sense. I wanted to ask you, what is the challenge nowadays in order for that public and private partnership to have a success in other countries with regard to switching from a fossil fuel dependency to a biofuel dependency, especially with regard to what the IPCC report entailed with the urgency of that switch? How can maybe countries include this transition at a faster pace?
My feeling is this, that one of the biggest challenges is to recognize the potential of biofuel. You see, if you look at the transition in the long run, there will be several elements. One element is solar energy, and I think one of the big challenges is to develop and to take advantage of solar energy throughout Latin America, not only for solar energy for consumer, but also for industry. Now, biofuel will be important. People wouldn't tomorrow stop using petroleum, so they will. People will still will have internal combustion engine. You will need biofuel for ship. You need biofuel for airplane. So my feeling is that biofuel can be grown in all over the world, but especially in many countries in Latin America. Now, the trick in biofuel is to grow it effectively, to increase productivity, and to have land resources, and to develop different type of biofuel for different purposes. Now, in order to do it, you really need to have two things. You have to have research done at universities and move to companies, and companies that are really willing to emphasize and concentrate on biofuel. Now, Petrobras is a great company, but they develop biofuel, but their interest was in oil. You may need to find these companies and other companies that will be committed to introduce biofuel, especially sugarcane biofuel or biofuel from other products that have incredible greenhouse gas gain compared to, let's say, to corn ethanol that doesn't save that much greenhouse gases. Furthermore, when you produce biofuel, there are a byproduct like bagasse that can be used for industrial purposes. But eventually, you will be able to produce biofuel from other products like algae and from other plants. I think I really believe that with CRISPR and genetic engineering, you will be able to develop trees or plants that will be able to absorb carbon quite effectively, and you can make money by sequestering carbon. But that leads to another need, which I think is really, really important, to push for some mechanism in the world for payment for carbon, a global carbon tax or Latin American carbon tax. See, Latin America will benefit from a carbon tax because they will be able to sequester carbon in different ways. Now, every time that you develop a new sector, you need a combination of public sector that provides the research, pay for infrastructure, and industries that does it. And I think that now there is an opportunity to do it because companies like Shell and British Petroleum and American oil companies know that they have to decarbonize. And if you can invest in research and speak with them, work with the Brazilian companies, with the private sector, to seek out to accelerate the productivity of biofuel, it will be very important. Now, there is also another issue. In order to have biofuel or to have any alternative technology, because I really don't see the bioeconomy as replacing fuel only. It will replace chemical, it will replace plastic. In order to do it, you have to increase the productivity of food production. Now, food productivity is very low. There is a huge difference between productivity in some areas. Let's say I'm originally from Israel, and productivity there is about 3 times. Yields per acre are 3 or 4 times than, let's say, in many other countries. Yield in the United States is 10 times more than it will be in Ghana. In Brazil, some of the areas have incredible yield, and other areas have less yield. So sharing technology, I think using biotechnology, new genetic varieties throughout, using irrigation more effectively. If you need less land for crops, you have more land for bioeconomy, and you don't need to cut the forest. On the contrary, I believe that you can have more food, more biofuel, and more forest if you use the bioeconomy, if you use the power of CRISPR. So to some extent, one of the big challenges is to convince people not to be afraid of CRISPR and biotechnology, and to develop systems that once you have this variety, it's not, the money doesn't go only to the big companies, but the resources and the knowledge is moving to individual farmers. So you can have public companies that develop universities develop the product, some company that distribute seeds, but the farmers that produce it, and they can make a lot of money. It's developing supply chains that are efficient. If you have a lot of small farmers, they can work to develop a cooperative. But But to some extent, one of the key elements is to develop rules that would allow this type of transition of resources. Now, the other thing that is quite clear about the bioeconomy, and this is really tricky, but I think it's very important, the government need to have money. And so it means that you need to have some sort of taxation that will pay for investment in research and development. And if you can double the investment in public research and do it competitive and effective in all of Latin America, and you have better extension services, we know from the past that the return for public research is huge. If you develop it and you have a little bit more money to support infrastructure and you don't have corruption, this is a very important thing all over the world, suddenly it will develop the infrastructure that would allow this transition. So to me, you need to have some money for the public sector. You need to have efficient private sector, and you need to develop a system that the benefit are spread throughout the system. They don't stay at the top, but they move to the farmer. In order that they move to the farmer, you need to educate the farmer. You need to develop a capacity to have strong extension. And also you need to realize that sometimes you cannot have small farms that produce commodities, because they won't be able to support income. So you can allow for larger farmers at certain areas. Now, I don't mean that all the farms need to be big. If you grow tomatoes or flowers, for example, flowers, you can be fantastic. If you ask me about the Caribbean, they can grow flowers. Small acre of flowers is 1 acre of flower can be equal to about 50 acres of corn, and you can grow it in the Caribbean. In some areas in Kenya or Colombia already they grow incredible amount of get a lot amount of resources from flowers.
Now these
are medical products.
Uh-huh.
So I think there are a lot of possibilities with the bioeconomy that the revenue and the benefit will be shared throughout.
These are great examples of how we can adopt different types of crops. Now, we're running short of time, but I had a curiosity in terms of organic production with regards to how to create a more efficient organic production, given that many of the countries are depending now, especially Argentina, on the exportation of these products because they have an added value for being organic within the region and exported. What are the challenges in order to make organic food production more accessible? Because we know that the price is higher than non-organic, and many countries are dependent on this. What are the challenges to make it more accessible?
I'll tell you my view of organic. Organic is more a marketing. There is nothing better than organic, in my view. But now, and I think that if, for example, organic system will adopt modern science, like if, for example, you allowed new varieties produced by CRISPR to be part of organic, it will be much better. I think there is another problem with organic, that the greenhouse gas effect of organic is much bigger than of traditional agriculture. That said, you can make money from organic, but the way to make money from organic is not to produce a lot of it, because the reason that the price of organic is high is because for whatever reason people consider it to be better, and only rich people can afford it, so they feel that there's something good about it. So to some extent, on one hand, I really believe that it will be a good idea to expand the definition of organic, so organic will take advantage of modern science. I think relying, for example, on animal waste as a source of fertilizer would save humanity. On the other hand, it will take more acre and increase the climate change. So make organic a little bit more science-based. At the same time, take advantage of it. If some people want to pay more, try to grow it, but you have to know that there is a limit on how much you can sell in organic and get high prices, because the moment that the prices will go down, the supply will increase, the prices will go down. So it's really, really tricky. I really believe that eventually people will start realizing that we need to have a much more a better definition of organic that will take advantage of scientific knowledge, take advantage of biotechnology, take advantage of precision farming, and maybe get rid of the use of chemical pesticide or other things. So I think a compromise when you use modern biology, but you don't use some of the heavy-duty chemical can work very well. But in the meantime, organic can be a niche market. I really don't see it as a big market. And I think that if someone find a way to grow it, and the other thing is, in some areas, organic is much better than other areas. Organic is grown very well in California, not because we are smarter, but because we are a desert, so the desert that is irrigated desert. In areas that you have basically like a desert with water, you can grow organic because you don't need a lot of chemicals. So if you identify an area that can really grow, produce crop with very little chemical, maybe that's the area to go organic. So organic is really tricky. It has to be in the right place. It has to be done in the right way. And you have to recognize that you cannot have too much of it because then the price will go down. And as I said before, hopefully in the long run, the definition of organic will be more open to new developments in science.
Perfect. Dr. Zilberman, thank you very much. Our time is up. I wish we had a little bit more time. Thank you so much for your information, your knowledge, and we hope to have you one more time, many other times here in the AgroAmérica TV channel. Thank you.
Okay, I will be happy. Thank you a lot for the opportunity. Bye-bye.
E para você que assistiu o programa, muito obrigado pela atenção e a audiência. Conversamos sobre bioeconomia nas Américas e os desafios para a transição energética de fontes fósseis para fontes renováveis, como outros assuntos que envolvem a bioeconomia. A conversa foi com o professor da Universidade de Califórnia em Berkeley, David Zilberman. Não esqueça de conferir o nosso conteúdo jornalístico nas redes sociais do AgroMais e até já!